Elysabeth Alfano, and you are at Fear No Art Presents The Dinner Party. So what I do on the dinner party is I invite 3 celebs and a known chef who cooks for them. And over food and wine and chocolate and some performances, the conversations flow. So I would like to ask you, Mr. Michelin star restaurant, 5 Diamond Star restaurant, and you have been at this for so long, 29 years in Chicago with Everest. I mean, most restaurants come and go after a couple years. Everest has been 29 years in the making, and of course, all these accolades. And so I wondered if you could tell us, you know, what does it take to be an ongoing 5 Diamond restaurant?
I have a debt with, well, I always say my entire staff. When everybody work for me know this really well. I always say, what is for me good today is not good enough for me tomorrow. When I say this every day.
So you're always working forward.
You always have to improve what you have. While the day when you stop to improve what you've done, you fail. Yeah. You climb a mountain, so you're done, you fail. This means you keep climbing, especially when you have a restaurant like Everest, you have to.
To me, the thing you all have in common is that there's really no delineation between your career and your life. You're basically living your life all the time. And I wanted to ask you how each of you got into what you're doing now, but more importantly, when in your career, I'll call this your career, but it's your life, did you realize that being who you are, your full self, is your biggest asset? I'll start with you.
Okay, I think I just realized that just now. Thank you. Shit, I gotta get a life. Oh, no life. I have no life. Oh my God.
Give me a second. No, I mean, I think that's true of anybody. It's true of anybody in the arts, I think, for sure, because you have to put so much of yourself into what you're doing for it to be real. Otherwise, people can spot a fake, and people know when it's just something you do on the side. And if you really believe in it and really want to succeed in it, you need to bring your full self to the table every time.
Right.
That's been my experience anyway, and I think it served me well most of the time. It can cause trouble once in a while too, but the truth of the matter is, if you don't do it, then you'll always be an also-ran. You have to bring your full self to the table every time.
You've then empowered yourself, and I think that's true whether you're an artist or you're just working as an accountant somewhere. When you tap into your authentic self, you become sort of your strongest self. I wondered for you, when did you realize that being your full self is going to be your biggest asset?
I was getting ready, I knew there'd be cameras, and I was like, well, even just the decision, like, okay, how much concealer am I going to put on under my eye? That's real. You know what I mean? And like, as uncomfortable as I sometimes feel, like flipping through the pages of a beauty magazine at the gym or whatever, not that those images exist, but that those images have become standard. Right. Like, well, to what extent do I want to participate in perpetuating that as the absolute standard aesthetically for women? And I caved. I put a lot of concealer on under my eye.
Oh, who didn't? Come on, raise your hand. Come on.
Yeah. But I think I'm still figuring it out. I think at first it was like, there's no delineation. But now as I get older and maybe just live in the life and in the body a little bit more, I'm like, I don't know, I think there's something to be said for artists who let the work stand for itself as well. So I'm not really sure where to land. Yeah.
Yes, right. And not that easy either. So what about you? When did you realize that, you know, just being your full self was going to be the best?
It was funny because I was just actually in Denver where the Dish Network is at, and I was doing a couple of things for them, and the cameraman said to me, he goes, do you work weekends? And it was the same kind of moment of self-realization, and I'm like, I've pretty much worked every weekend my whole life, but I don't consider it work because I love movies.
Yes.
I love radio, I love television, I love all the things I do, so yes, it's work, but it's never felt like a job, ever. So,
Yes,
you know,
right.
I tell young people, look, you're going to work for 40 years. Why don't you do something that you believe in, something that you care about, and don't just do it for the money.
Don't try to plot a career. Embrace your passion and try to find a way to make a living at it.
Yes. I so agree. Do you see yourself that way because you're around celebrity so much? Do you see yourself?
No, because I live in this city, and we've talked about how Chicago. You know, I'm from the south suburbs here, and Chicagoans. You know, we're talking with the chef about this too. I mean, it sounds cliched, but it's like we're such a nicer New York.
So
we have
true.
all the amenities and all the great things.
Yes.
So,
it's so
you know,
true.
I mean, no, I don't, and I just don't think of myself that way because I live in Chicago. We were talking a little bit backstage about critics, and you know, I'm a critic, and I love criticism, and I love reading somebody like Pauline Kael, who is a brilliant critic, and of course Roger and Jean. But I think in some cases, critics become so ensconced in the critic world, in the critical world, and they write for each other. And I think just being a film critic is a dangerous thing. You have to have a life outside of there, or a music critic, or whatever the case may be. You should have more interest than that, because they get a little bit too much, insulated from what's happening in the real world.
And it helps you be a better critic, no?
Absolutely.
Just like with every art
It goes
form,
back to what you were saying about how our lives are our jobs, and our jobs are our lives. It's all integrated.
I had a friend who threw a show in Minneapolis where CeeLo was the headliner. He wants to show his dad what he's doing. He's a rap promoter, and that sounds like it's not a job, So he's like, come to the venue, come to First Avenue, and I'll show you what I do for a living. CeeLo Green is in the back room. This guy brings in his dad. You're going to be the dad, and you're going to be CeeLo Green.
Okay.
He says, okay,
Wait a
Dad.
minute, I'm going to be CeeLo.
Okay, I'm the dad.
All right, I'm CeeLo.
Hey, Dad.
Forgot you.
CeeLo, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to introduce you to my dad. This is Dad. This is what I do for a living. I like bring musicians in, and I help them to play shows. And CeeLo Green puts out a pound. He goes like this.
Hey, Dad.
And then this dude's
How you
dad
doing, Dad?
puts his finger to it.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And only you two know. You know that that's visually funny. Only you know how disgusting
Yeah,
those
that's
feels.
horrible. It's like, oh, my God.
I gotta tell you, it's not so great on my end either.
I was at Sundance a few years ago, and I was told that Al Pacino wanted to have dinner with me. Al Pacino. Al Pacino.
Wants to have
right?
dinner with you,
Yeah,
not an
just
interview,
just
but-
the two of us. Like, we're gonna get together. We're gonna have dinner.
He wants
So
to
we go to
eat
this
with
little
you.
restaurant that they had closed the downstairs part. I walk in. There's Al Pacino dressed all in black, and this is again only like maybe 6 years ago now. And the whole time, and he couldn't have been nicer. And the whole time, I wanted to talk to him about Michael Corleone and
sure.
all these great movie roles. And he was married and he had younger children. He was just like, so how's the latest Pixar film? Is that good? The cars talk, right? That's what they do. They go around on a track and they talk. What is that all about? Should I see that? And I'm like, I only had like 45 minutes with Al Pacino, and he wanted to get recommendations to what movies he should take his kids to. That was his reality. And I wanted to talk to him about Dog Day Afternoon. The cars go around in a circle, right? Where do they end up?
Did he yell a lot? I just want to know, did he yell a lot at the dinner?
Yeah, even when he's just kind of, do you want to get a salad? Let's get a salad.
I could've figured.
Yes, I want a salad. I'll have 2. All right, 2 salads.
For me, the music industry has suffered a dearth of collaboration of late. A lot of people, everybody's got a little computer in their basement. They can record everything by themselves. They can find loops that fill in the places where people used to play, and that's good. There have been great things that come out of it, and it does teach people the tools better. But I think you lose something there, and the places that musicians used to congregate and work together, the big studios and clubs that weren't just one in, one out kind of thing, they've kind of gone away. So I thought that if we put something together that was community-based and was more than just a place where you can go to see a band, but also a place where maybe you can go to learn something, or your kids can go to learn something, or a place where a local band might go to record their record or to distribute an existing record.
Right.
And all have things on premises, then when the next great idea comes, and that can come from anywhere, by the way, that can come from a kid, that can come from a lawyer who plays guitar on the side. When the next great idea comes, you have all these musicians under one roof, and you can say, let's execute it right now. Let's get it out there. Let's make something happen. And
Love that.
Yeah,
That's
I love
great.
that. And what I love about that is a lot of the same reason of why I do this show is because we're all, we think we're communicating, we think we're in touch, we're tweeting, therefore we must be in touch, but really we're losing that sense of community, I think. And so I like to bring people together over food, and then we can talk about things, even people who don't know each other. We can talk about things, and maybe you guys are even meeting your neighbors right about now as you clank your forks together. So, I love that sense of community that you're bringing. And do you feel that there's more creativity because you have people under one roof?
I do. I mean, not that it's the only way things can happen, but I do feel like when you have creative people under one roof, good things happen. When you have a chance to talk together, I mean, even tonight, you get a chance to talk together, you just get another idea, or even just a little inkling of something, I never thought of it that way. That sometimes is enough to launch something great.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question
yeah.
to that? Like, I record all my lyrics in my closet still because I got used to that.
Wow.
And I can do it in my gym shorts. And if it takes me 85 tries to get the line right, because I'm not probably going to win any awards for being a vocalist, but I'm cheap as hell when I work for me, and I take
Right,
direction
yes.
really well.
Yes.
But I work a lot to like, is this right? No, should I try it again? And eventually I get shy if I do that in front of an engineer who's on the clock 80 times.
Right.
On the other hand, maybe I'd find that if I was forced into that environment, I'd develop a new set of skills. But everything you just said made sense.
Well, it's
How
not
do
an
I get
either or,
involved in
though.
a? You're
I mean,
right.
It's
yeah.
not either
Right.
this or that. I mean, all those skills you develop there are incredibly valuable and can bring you to a position where you have an idea that's pretty fully formed. But I've always found that it's good to have an outside opinion. It's an echo chamber when it's just you. You
Yeah.
know, whatever idea you think you've got going on, maybe it's great, maybe it's not. But
Right.
without somebody else to look at it, it's very hard to judge.
Absolutely.
You know.
So what advice would both of you guys give for people entering the music business?
That's a pretty wide open question. I mean, there's so much to do in the music business. That's one of the things. But if you want to enter music as a performer, perform. Go out
Just do.
and start doing it.
Just
I mean,
do.
it's hard as hell, and you won't make a lot of money. But if you can pursue it and actually get it going, it's the best thing in the world.
Right.
I would say be excellent. Like legitimately. A lot of people are worried about getting their demo straight before they're worried about getting their chords down or they're worried about getting their writing right. The other thing I'd say is keep your overhead low. Unless you're the recipient of a trust fund, get your coffee, drip coffee. You can put all the shit in it at the little bar behind you. They have milk, they have sugar there. And every hour that you don't have to trade, earning your rent is another hour that you can dedicate to mastering your craft.
What I find is that it's not actually the people who have the most talent, and it's not the people who have the most money, and it's not the people who are the best looking. It's the people who are willing to work the hardest, so get themselves to that point of excellence, and it's the people who can make their money last the longest.
Absolutely.
And it's the people who are willing to jump in, or not to not
Yeah,
be
you
afraid.
really do have to be an entrepreneur. It's like
You do.
it's all about, you know, when I was having my Voss water earlier before I had my city
Thank
winery
you, because they're my
wine and
sponsors.
Voss
Thank
chocolate,
you.
and I was dining
Oh.
on this fantastic Everest food. You have to understand that there's two sides to the business. It's show business.
Yes, yes, yes. It can get tricky for sure. So we were talking about this creative process and how much of the success that you've all had, starting with Chef, but everybody, how much of it is work, how much of it is luck, because that does play a role, and of course how much of it is skill. So I'll start with you. Do you feel that you were born with a natural palate, or has this been hard work the whole way, or luck?
No luck, I think, is maybe the last thing what happens. In
The
general.
last thing.
I think the most important, I grew up in a bigger family, and food was always my passion.
Yeah.
And it's still today. I think you have to be passionate. Why everything else after that comes easy. But when you have no passion, you never be successful. And I'm sure everybody on this table have the passion what they do. And I'm in the restaurant business, I'm passionate. I always talk, I come a certain age, I don't like to do it, I just don't do it anymore. I have a passion. I like to do what I'm doing. And so long as I have the strength or my head is working, I will do it. And it's really passion. The rest come from alone, I think. We talk about stars or movies on financial. That's all accessory. You do your work right. When you make it for love, everything else comes from alone.
Everything
That's
else
what I
comes.
believe.
It's so
That's
true.
what I-
You're right. Passion is what gets you there. Work is what makes you great. And ultimately, one of my good friends who plays with us all the time, I won't name him, I've seen him go off on people who after the show come and say, "Oh my God, you're so talented." He says, "Can I swear on the show?"
You can do
He
it.
says,
Oh, I have
"Fuck
7
you.
times already."
I am not talented. He says, "I bust my ass on this shit. I put a fucking 200 hours on this month on this. So I'm not talented.
Hear, hear
that
to
is
that.
belittling
Yeah.
my work."
Yeah.
And it's true.
No, I
I
know
mean,
exactly
really,
what
maybe there is an aptitude and a talent to it, but it comes down to you got to put in the time and you
Yeah.
got to study
There's
and work.
no way around the work.
You know, and that's what gets you good.
People creating recipe is not. It's an evolution from your craft what you have during the all years what you have going on. You don't come up with something very new like this, or yeah, you can, but have no sense.
Right.
But I think it's evolution of what you're doing in your career.
And I want to go back to something that Desta said earlier about be
Yeah.
excellent, because
Yes.
that's true. And the same thing the two gentlemen were saying. When that door opens, you have to be prepared.
Right.
And yes, there's a little bit of luck, but when people say to me, and I get it, they don't mean to be insulting, but people say to me, I get this every day, I get this on Twitter, "I want your job," they say. And I'm like, what job? Which job do you want? I want your job. And I know what they're saying. They go, "I want to watch movies for a living." It's about 5% of what I do.
Yes.
And it's all about the hard work. It's the the Malcolm Gladwell thing about doing 10,000 hours of something.
Yes.
When I started at the Sun Times, I was 23 years old, And I got a job there basically answering the phones and getting coffee for other reporters. And I kept sending, giving the editors my writing samples. And when the managing editor of the paper took me out to lunch to say, have you ever thought about being a columnist? I reached into my briefcase and I handed him 10 sample columns that I'd already written.
Right there.
Do the work. Don't say, oh, I want this to happen to me. Sarah Silverman always says this. When people say to Sarah Silverman, I want to do this, I want to do that, she always goes, you're never going to do it. You're just talking about it, you're never going to do it.
Where do you get your inspiration to create? And for all of you, but we'll start with Chef.
The most important, I think, is the ingredients.
They inspire you.
They inspire me. When I go on the market or go in the store or in my house, I have the ingredients when I use. This gives me the impression.
Yeah.
You have a great vegetable, a great piece of fish. That gives me. When you give me a really old piece of vegetable, I have no inspiration to cook with it to make it.
Yes, right.
It's all about what you find. Number one, I always believe a chef will not eat his own food, never go eat in his restaurant.
Have you ever drawn inspiration synesthetically? Have you ever drawn inspiration from something that is not food? Or
No.
does it usually stem
Have
from
to be food.
ingredients?
Have to be the ingredients.
Shut up! It would have been cool
Yeah.
if the
It
answer.
would have been so awesome.
Yeah.
That would have been so awesome. He said, I one day was looking at Van Gogh's
Yeah,
Starry
you don't-
Night, and I
didn't
thought truffles.
Yeah.
By the way, the chef was awesome as the first villain in the first Die Hard movie, wasn't he? By the way.
What's the question again? I forgot.
Inspiration. Where do you actually, Dessa as well? Where do you guys draw your inspiration from? Oh,
it's
chocolate
all
is chocolate. So do you draw
I
inspiration
have a
from food?
super
Thanks,
douchey
Vinny.
answer to that. I think I've always been a little bit loath of like the model of inspiration, which implies this kind of Tinkerbell romantic thing, which I've known artists that work like that, that get on an idea and it's exciting and it feels exalting. But I have very few of those moments. Not none, but very few. For me, it feels like you get hungry, so you eat, and you get tired, so you sleep, and you get that art feeling, and so you find a decent thing to spend some ink on. But for me, it feels less like I'm being pulled towards a source of distant light than I am being pushed from behind.
I mean, pushed from like a visceral need to.
I don't want to get too paperback about it, but
Oh, I love that.
But
There's a lyric right there.
yeah.
Write that down, Chris.
I'm going to write some great
You
tunes
can't
after this.
have
He's like, oh, I'll do a song called Paperback Writer. I don't think anybody's done that.
Nobody's done that.
But yeah, it's a I don't know. It's a moodiness, I guess. To be totally frank, I'm probably not a hell of a lot of fun to hang out with. You know?
Like an itch to scratch, or no? It's
More
getting
like
worse?
a drink to drink.
Okay, right. Okay.
Or a rent to pay.
Or a
sometimes.
rent to pay. Yeah, sometimes that. But yeah, I think it feels a little blue sometimes, and it feels like being, an appetite more than it feels like a distant North Star.
Yeah. I get it. Any inspiration?
I think inspiration is overrated. I think if you know your craft, I mean really, I think if you know your craft and you have a song that you want to write or a purpose for a song you want to write, you draw from all your life experience. And maybe I mean, everything's an inspiration. Maybe you remember a relationship or a feeling or a great piece of fish or whatever it might be, and that becomes your inspiration. I think that the need for the song makes you go through your catalog of these are the great things that happened to me in my life, or the terrible things that happened to me in my life, or the things that made me feel this way or that way in my life, and this is what I'll write about.
What's the need? From whence did the need for the song stem? Was it alimony or rent, or what? Why did you need the song?
It can be any of those things. It can be. I mean, I'm kind of a deadline-driven writer.
Okay.
So I like to have a purpose for. I have to have this done by here, and then usually an hour or two before I do it.
I want to thank you all for coming because your energy makes everything
Amazing
go.
crowd.
And so
You guys are
really,
great.
we had a packed today. It was so much fun.